Welcome to RSA Conference. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Zscaler, and I'm your host, Mandy Logan. And joining me for this interview is Deepen Desai, who is the CSO and Head of Security at Zscaler. Deepen, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for inviting me.
I am very excited to get to speak with you. The recent report that Zscaler published regarding worldwide increase in phishing attacks, really it's exciting and it's titillating, but it's terrifying.
Right.
Right? So a few of the key takeaways from the report included that there's been a nearly 60%, a 58.2% increase globally in one calendar year of phishing attacks. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. So phishing is where all the attacks start. It's not surprising that that vector continues to grow. That's usually the stage one of several multi-stage attacks that we see out there, including ransomware attacks. So net, the report actually focused on all the attacks that we saw in 2023. It accounted for about 2 billion threats that were blocked for global enterprises and Zscaler cloud. What the team then did is we studied where did we see these increase, what were some of the new TTPs that were being leveraged by the bad guys when they're launching these phishing attacks. What's the role of AI as we see these attacks being launched against global enterprises? And a lot of those interesting trends are documented in the report. I can speak to a few of them right now.
Well, before you go into that real fast,
Okay.
so what is your takeaway? Is AI and generative AI why there was such a substantial increase in 1 year?
AI does have a role in both in terms of increasing the volume and also the effectiveness that we're seeing from these attacks. The chances of these attacks being successful goes up exponentially when the bad actors leverage AI.
And now, is that because of an increase in believable context?
Great point. So I think the general understanding is, hey, it can write very good English, right? No spelling mistakes. Everything is very well written. The part that less people understand is with the generative AI element, you're now able to integrate context. So an example that I would say is the bad guy can ask the generative AI element to say, hey, pretend to be director of finance and draft this email directed towards your employees talking about a new stock plan, right? Or it could be something else coming from IT. And generative AI will be able to add that context. So not only will it write very well written email, no errors, but it is also able to add this context. It will write as if it's the director of finance addressing the employees. There are certain nuances that make it more and more believable. Needless to say, you're able to do it in local language, based on the industry vertical it is, and it's also able to bring in the recent news cycle, like, okay, because of the advent of X, we're trying to do this. So all of those contexts getting added in those spear phishing or targeted phishing attacks makes the impact much more higher.
Absolutely, and I noticed, along with generative AI, I think of the deep fakes, being able to, bad actor or team of actors being able to use even voice cloning, and I know your own CEO had an experience with this, with the Zscaler employee, being targeted by a team that was going after many technology companies. So I am very curious, between the generative AI increase, the things like the voice cloning, and going into the browser and the browser attacks.
Right.
And where do you see all of this going? I mean, and how do you see the Zscaler platform being able to help organizations respond even more quickly when they are compromised?
Absolutely. So look, we will continue to see these trends grow. The three key trends that I will highlight that we talk in a lot more detail in the report as well. Number one is where um, adversary in the middle
Yes.
campaigns.
Yes.
They are on the rise. This is where threat actors basically are using phishing as a service kits to perform large-scale phishing attacks, and they're able to evade multi-factor authentication. And I'm talking about those app-based, SMS-based, one-time passwords that they're able to hijack, and then within 6 minutes of that attack being successful, they're able to automatically exfil data that belongs to that user whose identity was just compromised. They're also targeting your code repository and IP information, so it's not just users' email box, but properties like GitHub, GitLabs. Now it's the organization's entire code base that gets susceptible. So adversary in the middle campaigns, we will continue to see those going up and up. Browser in the browser technique, it's an old one, but we continue to see that as well. There are phishing attacks where the user will receive a link, and that will say, when the user tries to open it on their laptop, nothing shows up. It advises the user to open that link in mobile device with whatever phishing lure that they're leveraging. As soon as you open it in your mobile device, the phishing page loads. And in the browser technique, in plain languages, they're literally having an image that shows the address bar of the browser. So you will see, I'm just going to take an example, bankofamerica.com in the address bar, but it's an image. And the page goes in full screen mode, so the real address bar is hidden from the end user. That's how they're able to trick the end user into falling for this. And then the third aspect that I would call out is AI and generative AI driven attacks, which will continue to go up. The second part of your question, how does Zscaler help? Now, look, my guidance to the organization against whether it's phishing attacks leading to ransomware or just info stealing attacks is fast track zero trust transformation journey. And zero trust, I know that.
Now, I don't want to cut you off because this is very, very interesting to me. Looking at the Zscaler zero trust architecture, being able to give your potential clients an idea. Can you give us some more? That's so meaty. That is such an interesting thing, being able to switch over to a full zero trust architecture. And I really, it's like, it makes me so excited to know that the end users will have that extra layer of protection. But can you please go more into the zero trust architecture and how you work with an organization to slowly implement it? And I understand you use AI to give them real world understanding of how the implementation of zero trust architecture will impact them within the months to come.
Exactly. So look, the term zero trust has been heavily used and also abused over past several years. At the bare minimum, I'm going to call out the NSA's definition. You need to have zero trust on all your users and assets. Never trust, always verify, go with least privilege access, and then assume breach. So if an asset or an identity were to get compromised, that's the assume breach scenario. What is the blast radius, right? So those are the three fundamental principles when you're going on the zero trust implementation journey. Now, how Zscaler helps is we further simplify it by aligning with 4 important stages of the attack. Reduce your external attack surface, that's stage number 1. With Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange, we basically hide your attack surface. The attackers will not see your assets that are behind Zscaler infrastructure. Your user, when they visit an internet-bound destination, their IP hitting the site will also belong to Zscaler.
Now, is that because of the Zscaler's ability to have the direct-to-app connectivity?
So Zscaler is a full proxy. It's a man-in-the-middle proxy architecture, cloud-native proxy architecture, which allows us to terminate connection in Zscaler Cloud. We will make a connection on user's behalf to internet-bound destination. And that's how we're able to then inspect everything and apply those advanced threat protection rules. That's for the internet-bound destination. For the private applications, we have a Zscaler private access solution, which is part of this Zero Trust Exchange, where your applications are making an inside-out connection to Zscaler. Your users connect to Zscaler, and we stitch those two connections using a micro TLS tunnel. So there is no user landing up on the same network as the application, which is one of the biggest reason why we are able to contain that blast radius to a single identity or a single user,
Right.
single asset where that initial compromise happened, whether it's through phishing attack, whether it's through any other zero-day exploitation. So if I were to summarize those four attack stages where we help, first is external attack surface, second is prevent compromise. This is where we do full TLS inspection, consistent security controls, no matter where your users are, whether they're in office, whether they're traveling, or whether they're at RSA conference, their machine will always go to nearest Zscaler data center. All the security gets applied. Third is prevent lateral propagation. This is the segmentation piece that I just mentioned, where you never bring the users on the same network as the application. And then the last one is prevent data exfiltration. This is where any data that egresses your environment, your assets, your server, they should go through inline DLP inspection. You should have endpoint DLP as well.
Right.
So
That's fascinating, and I highly recommend to any of our listeners to look into the report, and then also to look very deeply into how and why Zscaler can be implemented rather as seamlessly as possible. And can you give us more information on, with the use of AI, when an organization is switching over to Zscaler, what sort of metrics or information can be provided to show them the effect that Zscaler will have?
great question. So there are certain things that's already in the product. We call this intelligent segmentation policies. And there are certain things that we're going to announce next month. I obviously won't be able to share more details on that, but the segmentation piece, we will monitor you will basically baseline your access on the Zscaler private access side, and then we'll be able to call out, okay, here are the group of users that are known to access these group of applications based on what we have seen over past 3 months. We'll make very specific policy recommendation. That's what we're calling intelligent policy segmentation. This group of users should only allow access to this group of applications. Based on the profile of applications they're accessing, it seems like they're engineers or these are finance folks. We'll even add that enrichment so that when the IT or the security teams are defining and enforcing those policies, it's pretty obvious to them. The part that, again, there more work that is being done where we're leveraging AI, A, to suggest those policies, but B, to also show the impact that those policy implementation will have. That way, IT teams, security teams will be able to implement with confidence that, okay, I know exactly what impact will be and how many tickets I should expect if there is any impact.
Right, not being completely overwhelmed by tickets as soon as they start switching over to Zscaler. But also, then, does that not help the security or IT team be able to justify that much more quickly to the rest of the organization why this one tool is definitely cost effective?
Yeah, so it absolutely does from security standpoint, because as you implement zero trust in the environment, you're able to get rid of a lot of the legacy architecture solutions, right? And there is a plethora of that. I won't go into the detail of that because we're talking about phishing. But the other piece that I will mention is every organization right now is on their path towards adopting generative AI applications within their environment as well. And Zero Trust Exchange, Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange has a role to play over there as well, where we enable these organizations to securely adopt generative AI in their environment. And the way we do it is exactly those 4 stages, as I mentioned. In fact, we're already starting to see attacks against those, when I say attacks, adversarial attacks against those LLM environments, generative AI environments, your internal training environments.
Oh, yeah.
So if you use those zero trust principles, you're able to, again, safeguard and minimize the impact that an adversary who has managed to compromise an employee laptop will have on that generative AI environment as well, which is equally important.
Well, that's fascinating, and that really helps leverage the ability of companies to go into this exciting new world of generative AI, but maintain their safety and security. Deepen, thank you so much for joining us. And with that, again, live here from the RSAC conference.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Security Weekly. To find out more, please visit securityweekly.com/Zscaler RSAC. Again, head over to securityweekly.com/RSAC to see all of our conference materials.